wanted to let y'all know that I've been informed that our microphones don't get too close to them, and they will pick up your voice and they will be very loud. Okay? So can you hear me?
They're going to automatically stay on because it's on right now.
You can stay on or you can turn it off. Okay?
Just don't move it.
Just, yeah. All right? So, I have a recommended motion to approve the consent calendar.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Any questions? All in favor, please address by raising your right hand. All opposed, your left. The motion passes. The consent calendar has been approved. At this time, I'd like to turn the program over to point 01 to Mr. Meek, who will chair this section. Thank you, Mr. Meek.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Before we get started, we have 3 visitors, and let me read the section on public comments. I want to say welcome to those who have signed up to speak today before the Committee of the Whole, and thank you for your interest in Greenville County Schools. Before we begin, let me remind everyone of the following procedures. As each speaker's name is called, he or she should proceed to the podium at the end of the board's days where there is a microphone and light system. Each speaker has up to 3 minutes to speak to the board. The light system will be green for the first 2 minutes and will turn yellow when 1 minute remains on the speaker's allotted time. In keeping with board policy KCA, abusive language or personal attacks aimed at students or staff members will not be permitted. All speakers are expected to behave in an orderly and respectful manner. The board will not engage in discussion with the speaker or respond to comments. The superintendent will designate a member of the staff to respond to each speaker in the appropriate and timely manner. I guess we do that, Committee of the Whole, don't we? Yes, okay. Okay, we have 3 speakers. The first speaker is Cynthia Wright. 3 minutes, Ms. Wright.
Can you hear me? Okay. Can you guys hear me? Okay. 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 I'm here today to voice my significant concerns of feeling like I'm being removed from my community. I have 1 child that has graduated from Malden High School, another child that is a sophomore currently at Malden, and 3 more that we hope will be provided the opportunity to attend Malden High School. It means something to me for all my kids to have diplomas from the same school. I cannot express the importance of that. My family is woven into this community. We moved here 8 years ago as my husband manages Haywood Mall. We could have had chosen any neighborhood. After doing our due diligence, we selected Planters Row. We chose it based on it being an established neighborhood with a lot of kids who my kids could grow with. While they have grown together, attended an excellent school together, play sports together, and other extracurricular activities, we carpool to school, sporting events, and other activities. With this proposal, our feel is this will be taken away. Some kids will be allowed to attend Malden, while others will not. This will be dejecting to my kids being split from their friends. In addition to that, we are being asked to travel further for school, sit longer in traffic to attend school in our minds not at the level of Malden. My daughter, who is in the 6th grade, can no longer ride the Hillcrest Middle School bus due to it being consistently late. It causes her stress and makes her fall behind, so I have to take her every day now. I can't imagine if the bus was going further out to Hillcrest High. My husband spends countless hours a week coaching youth sports at Malden Rec in baseball and basketball. We did this based on our kids developing together, being able to represent Malden as they grow tighter together. There are many other options in our opinion. Many neighborhoods are being developed around us. Why not pick those neighborhoods where buyers have the opportunity to do the same diligence we performed in buying our house and to grow their family just as we have? We believe this is completely unfair to us who have given back to the community we live in. I would ask for your consideration in all the words as they are heartfelt. We as a community understand there are other options that should be on the table to review the geocodes in more detail to allow our community to stay whole. I know you have a job to do, but I ask that you consider our voices. There are families and relationships to think through which we feel are being neglected. Again, I thank you for your time and pray that you will do the right thing in allowing our kids to continue growing together and keeping them together at Malden High School. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker is Ms. Rebecca Cunningham.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you regarding the rezoning of Planters Row neighborhood from Malden High School to Hillcrest High School. I, this morning, drove from my home to Hillcrest. The alternate route that the planning department suggested to us at the meeting, which was taking 417 through Main Street, and it took me 23 minutes to get to the high school. This was a good morning. There was no traffic. I hit all green lights. It was amazing. The moment I turned into the school to turn around, the traffic was backed up from Industrial Drive all the way to Fairview, which would have added at least another 5 more minutes. My daughter goes to Malden High School, and it takes her 10 minutes every morning. She doesn't have to drive the highway. Ranch Road was also a consideration, which is also a 2-lane road, windy and curvy, that you're putting 16 and 17-year-old very inexperienced drivers on. That's a safety issue. I will not allow my 16 and 17-year-olds to drive on the highway to save an extra 10 to 15 minutes to get to school every morning. I think that there are some real valid concerns about safety of our kids, and I hope that you take that into consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Mark Steenbeck. There you go.
Good morning. I would like to begin by once again thanking the board and staff for giving us the opportunity to be here and to speak this morning and share my concerns and share the concerns on behalf of all my neighbors. I would also like to say a quick thank you to Skip Limbaker for his empathy and professionalism that he has demonstrated to our neighborhood in this process. I've interacted with him several times through this process, and I honestly wish I wasn't on the opposite side of the situation with him, because I really like that guy, and he has been an amazing individual and been an amazing person to interact with. And so I wanted to publicly thank him for the way he's handled this. While there's much that I would like to say today, because obviously the constraint of time, there's 2 topics that I would like to bring to the board. First is, first is that we're dealing with a very complex problem. I understand that, and that ultimately the issue is bigger than just our neighborhood. The issue is the growth, and we get that, and we understand that, and that this probably won't be the last time that you face this issue based upon what's going on in Greenville. In my day job, I'm very aware of what's happening in Greenville and very intimately involved in all of the different things that are going on in terms of growth and what's happening. So I understand that. But I would ask that 2 considerations given. One is, first, understand, I know some of our neighbors have been pretty frustrated about that, and some feedback has gotten back to us that maybe we shouldn't be so frustrated and so emotional. And I can appreciate that, but please understand, we feel like this is being done to us. We have no say in this whatsoever. And if we got really mad about it and wanted to do something about it, the only person we can remove from this board is the guy that's fighting for us. So, it really is hard for us not to be emotional and frustrated with it. And so I just beg your understanding that some people have a harder time controlling that than others. But finally, and I just want to come back to the issue of community for us, that the thing that our neighborhood, the neighborhood of Planters Row, has that no other neighborhood will be able to say is we are a part of the Malden community. And it's not that we've been annexed recently. We've been a part of the Malden community for 25 years. We invest, just like Cynthia said, I coach with her husband. We invest our time, our money, our energies into that town. We spend time together, working out together, at church together, and all these things in that community. And to be asked to commute to a different community is really, really discouraging. And we think will have very negative impacts upon the neighborhood and the way that we're able to enjoy who we are and the identity that we have. So we beg and plead with you that you would give careful consideration to how this will affect not our neighborhood, but our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is 2.02, South Carolina School Board Association Delegate. There is a recommended motion. Do I have a maker? Do I have a maker?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Sailors.
I make a motion that we certify the slate of delegates with each trustee's name as both delegate and alternate for the chair to assign 3 votes and the remaining trustees 2 each.
I have a motion. Is there a second? Second. I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed to the motion say no. Motion carries. Next item, 2.03, student assignment plan for new Fountain Inn High School and relief to Malden and Hillcrest High Schools. Is there a motion?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Connor.
The recommended motion is to reassign the geocodes in Table 1 and the attached student assignment plan from Hillcrest High School to Fountain Inn High School. The geocodes listed in Table 2 from Malden High School to Fountain Inn High School, and the geocodes listed in Table 3 from Malden High School to Hillcrest High School, and to grant priority choice to the geocodes listed in Table 3 to attend Malden High School until 2025-26, or such time as the school exceeds the rated capacity, currently 2,211 full-time equivalent students, as established annually by the Planning and Demographics Department.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Are you any discussion?
Is there a presentation?
Is there a presentation?
Yes, we have a presentation.
Would you rather have the presentation?
Yes.
Mr. Royster.
Thank you, Mr. Meek. Just a few comments, then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Turner and to Ms. Farley for the specifics of the presentation. As we know, in the 2021 school year, we will open Fountain Inn High School. So this entire reassignment is predicated based upon the opening of that school, to establish an attendance area for that school, and through the establishment of that attendance area, to provide relief for growth in the southern part of the county, in addition to populating the Fountain Inn High School. The plan that we will present to you this morning is at its core similar to very similar to the one that was presented at the public meetings. We have fine-tuned that plan, providing a little more specificity to the priority choice component for the communities that have expressed concern about the move from their assignment at Malden High to Hillcrest High. You heard that specified in the motion, but we'll go into a little more detail in the presentation. The plan that's being presented to you today is most closely congruent to all 11 parameters as established in the board's policy for student reassignment. There are obviously a number of areas in all of these school zones, in both these school zones, that could be reassigned. This reassignment, however, reflects that which is most congruent to the 11 parameters in that policy. We also have been able to go back and include having a request from a community located just outside the back of the Bryson Elementary campus, for that community to be located into the Fountain Inn High School attendance area. So the primary changes that you will see today from the other presentation, after having received input from a variety of members of the community, as well as input from board members as they came up and looked through the maps and asked questions about those, or asked questions after the public meetings, we have again further refined the choice, the priority choice, allowing students to remain in Malden that are currently zoned there in one particular community. We have been able to accommodate the request of a particular community to be included into the Fountain Inn High School attendance area. We're experiencing great growth, not only in that area, but throughout the county, and I think they may touch on that in their presentation. In fact, this year's student growth I believe exceeded 1,200, Ms. Farley. Now, that includes about 200 or some odd from the charter school that was closed, but 1,000 student growth for now a couple of years, that's a little acceleration to growth over the past 3 to 5 years. So we know that we're on, we believe, certainly by our own calculations and the information that we have received throughout the county's planning process, that our county is going to continue to grow. At some point, it appears it's going to grow at a very accelerated rate. I think the projection is over 200,000 individuals in the next 20 years. And that's going to, at some point, that denotes there's going to be some really accelerated growth. So we believe that the plan that we present to you today not only best addresses providing an attendance area for the new school, but it also creates assignment areas for Fountain Inn, Hillcrest, and Malden that will help to meet the needs of growth, particularly in the next 3 to 10 year period, where it's extremely difficult for us to, with pinpoint precision, estimate what the population in those 3 school attendance areas might be. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Dr. Turner and Ms. Farley to give you the specifics of that plan. Dr. Turner?
Thank you, Dr. Royster. Madam Chair, board members, we're here this morning to present to you the administration's recommendation for your consideration of the student assignment plan for populating not only Fountain Inn High School, our newest high school, but also a plan to reduce the enrollments in Malden and Hillcrest High Schools. The district's long-range facility plan approved the construction of the new Fountain Inn High School in order to serve the rapidly growing southern and eastern portions of our county. Fountain Inn High School is currently under construction and is scheduled to open in August of 2021 and will allow for the reduction of enrollments at Malden and Hillcrest High Schools. The plan presented today will allow the district continued flexibility in accommodating the expected enrollment increases at all 3 impacted high schools. And to reiterate what Dr. Royster said, we expect that population increase to accelerate in that area. And Ms. Farley will go into more detail in terms of lots to go and subdivisions planned in those areas. And we feel like this plan gives you as a board and the administration the flexibility to deal with that increase and rapidly increasing population in those areas. The plan has been drafted by our Planning and Demographics Department by using Board Policy AD, and as mentioned by Dr. Royster, beginning with those 11 factors in terms of assigning students to an attendance area. The plan has been drafted with input from community meetings, parents, and district administrators. And as Dr. Royster mentioned, it has been adjusted as a result of those the input we received in those meetings, as well as emails, phone calls, and discussions with all those stakeholder groups. The synopsis of the plan includes the following, a very brief synopsis with Ms. Farley going into much greater detail in her presentation. As you know, we're planning to open Fountain Inn High School by phasing in 1 grade per year, beginning with grade 9 in 2021. The initial capacity of Fountain Inn High School will be for 1,000 students, with an expandable core to accommodate up to 2,000 students. Assign approximately 744 students from Hillcrest High School to the new Fountain Inn High School. Assign approximately 193 students from Malden High School to Fountain Inn High School. Assign approximately 242 students from Malden High School to Hillcrest High School, which would give you a total of 435 students that are being reassigned from Malden to either Fountain Inn or Hillcrest High Schools. It provides choice in the following ways. And we hope that these choices will relieve some of the impact on families that were brought to your attention this morning and that we've received from public input over the past month and a half as we've had these meetings. First, younger siblings may attend the high school where an older sibling is currently attending or will be attending. It provides priority choice for students being reassigned from Malden to Hillcrest until 25-26, as long as space allows, at Malden High School, and Ms. Farley will go into the process of what priority choice means in terms of the process. It also provides a move-out choice for students who move from the attendance area of the high school they are attending, allowing them to remain in that high school. And that is a practice that is currently in place at all of our high schools. And it also provides choice for children of employees who work at a site. So at any of our sites, an employee may have choice to bring their own child to that site with them. So with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Farley at this time for her to go through her presentation and answer your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Turner. Mr. Costin is going to assist me. I'm going to remain here, and he's going to assist me with the PowerPoint. Just to expand a little bit on Dr. Royster and Dr. Turner's comments before we begin the presentation. You know, Langston Charter School is still a part of us. With our enrollment this year, our total enrollment is 77,450 students. When I began working here, it was about 42,000. And as Dr. Royster said, we're right at increasing 1,200 students this year in 5K through 12th grade. That is actually the largest single-year increase since before the recession.
Ms. Farley, hold on just a second. Can you turn her volume up? Whoever's controlling that. Chris?
Is this better with it closer to me?
Yeah, we don't want to mess Chris and him up. Thank you, Ms. Farley.
As I said, well, that's too bad. Is that the feedback I'm getting? Is that good? So, as we talk about student assignment, which I certainly understand can become a very emotional and a very challenging circumstance that we find ourselves having to deal with. When we look at numbers, when we look at lots to go, approved single-family lots that we've already received notice of in the department across the county are over 15,000 approved single-family lots in subdivisions. And when we look at some of our in-migration numbers, which we're very anxious to get those, the census is a little behind this year. As you know, when the federal government closed down, we normally have some of that data by now, but it's not available yet. Hope it to be available in the next year. We think in-migration into the county will once again be very high, as it has been, and certainly with Greenville County's comprehensive planning process that they're going through right now, their projections are that the county will grow 220,000 people by 2040. That will generate definitely a further need for more additions onto schools and new schools by 2040, and of course along with that comes student assignment changes. The district over the last 20 or so years has reassigned students from both Malden and Hillcrest to multiple schools, and we looked the other day, were those students still at those two high schools, there would be 830 more students between the two schools. So as we grow, we are continuing to have to face the challenge of new buildings, additions onto schools, and student assignment changes. As we have worked on the student assignment proposal in the department, of course, we use your board policy AD as our guide in establishing proposals for student assignment. We received much input. There's a chart in your documentation sharing with you the number of emails, the 4 public input meetings we had, other opportunities we had, phone calls and so forth into the department. And we received much very thoughtful and very important information to us. So we appreciate all of that input. As we begin to look through the PowerPoint now, of course, we're here, as Dr. Royster said, because we're building a new high school, Fountain Inn High School. Just the layout of the school, if you've been by there recently, there's a lot of dirt being moved. And of course, the school is being built with an initial seating capacity of 1,000, an average per grade of about 250, a core capacity of 2,000, so that we can easily expand the school. The school's scheduled to be completed in August of 2021 for the first 9th grade class. We are planning to populate the school 1 grade at a time, and by the year 2024-25, the school will be completely populated. You see here the outline. This red outline is the proposed assignment area for Fountain Inn High School. Fountain Inn High School is right here. We did make one adjustment after hearing from parents. This geocode was added. One of the larger subdivisions in this geocode is West Farm. We drove from the entrance of West Farm 2 to the high school, and it was 1.3 miles. And after looking at our numbers and all, we felt comfortable assigning that to Fountain Inn High. Additionally, and in your packet are several scenarios that were offered up as possibilities. We looked at each of those, and you have in your packet our analysis of those. We did add, this is the area that is recommended assigning to Hillcrest High from Maulding, West Spring Meadows subdivision, right here. There are no homes there, so at this point, so there are no students. Actually, there's no population there right now. The cumulative impact is a reduction of Hillcrest High's population by 502 students and a reduction of Malden High's population by 435 students and 937 students assigned to Fountain Inn High. This document, which is in your PowerPoint, and you might can see it better on the screen, your own computer screen, but we have here our program capacity for each one of the schools. Of course, when we started working on this in the summer, we used last year's geocode data, and you see our 15th day, or our geocode data from last year. And this again, it is the projected geocode numbers based on the plan that we're presenting to you and recommending to you today. We computed as your policy says, to look at capacity of the school, and this is projected based on the plan. And someone might say, well, why have you got Hillcrest this low? This right here is the issue why. There are over 2,000 approved single-family lots in Hillcrest High's remaining attendance area. Malden has 585, and Fountain Inn has 941. Several factors that are in your policy. One is looking at the percent of farms students, and you see what that is based on the proposed plan. You also see ELA and math test scores, which for our work. I'm pleased to say that this is quite balanced. So the impact of by school, which we've already talked about, you're taking 744 out of Hillcrest, but then adding back 242. You're taking from Malden High two areas, one at the northern end of the Fountain Inn proposed plan, 193, and 242 from the area recommended from Malden to Hillcrest High. So you get a net out of Malden High at 435. I would also like to mention that the new Fountain Inn High School incorporates all of Gordon K-8 School and all of Fountain Inn Elementary, a portion of Bryson Middle. So there will be technically two middle schools feeding to Fountain Inn High School, Gordon being a K-8 and a portion of Bryson Middle. You see there, and you see the subdivision lots to go. Again, going back to our earlier statements about we continue to grow. Our growth this year is very significant in our overall population, and a couple of us have served on various committees with the county on the comprehensive plan and their projections, and we know, barring some very unusual event that would stop people from moving here, which would be something none of us here have any control over. That would be a significant recession or something like that. We are going to continue to grow. So in summary, again, we reassigned 744 students from Hillcrest to Fountain Inn, assigned 193 from Malden to Fountain Inn, reassigned 242 students from Malden High to Hillcrest High. We reduced the assigned student populations at both Malden and Hillcrest to below 2,000. Provides space for projected growth in the attendance areas. Some of that is from larger, lower grades, as well as new development. We provide priority choice to students in geocodes being reassigned from Malden to Hillcrest, and we will very carefully monitor that. We will identify all those families currently living there and their students, and we will work with them for them to know when to make their choice request. We will handle those or manage that outside of our regular choice lottery for them. The plan results in Fountain Inn student population slightly over 900, and with a population that will allow a full menu of extra and co-curricular opportunities. No one will be impacted currently in either Hillcrest or Malden High School. The first grade that will be impacted will be rising ninth graders in the 2021-22 school year. Those students are current seventh graders. So we do not plan to take any of the recommended changes or make any of them effective until 2021-22. Families that have an older student at either Hillcrest or Malden High, if they have a younger student who starts before that one graduates, that student can attend, as well as younger students who start. And of course, then we have the special priority choice for students in any of the Malden to Hillcrest area through school year 2025-26 with priority choice. And of course, all of our choice programs are available to all students. So our recommended assignment plan, this is the new Fountain Inn High School recommendation. The remaining green is the new green, which includes that area recommended assignment from Malden to Hillcrest, and this is Malden High. We'd be glad to entertain questions.
Dr. Oyster, does that finish the presentation?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Just want to make sure.
That
before I go to
concludes our
questions.
presentation.
Thank you. Dr. Ball O'Connor.
Yes, Ms. Farley, before we get too far away from it, I would like to understand if there are 21, we've got way more students planned for Hillcrest right now than I would have imagined in the lots to go. So if we're lowering by 500 and you're saying we expect 2,000, in what time frame are you referring?
Well, now that's lots to go. That will not generate a student for every lot by any means. Those
Okay.
lots to go will probably generate somewhere around 180 to 200 students.
Okay.
And those are those are various stages. Some of the regional or national developers that come in build faster than the local developers. Some of those developments, it will probably take 5 to 7 years for them to be built out. But some of the, again, regional and national developers that are in, a lot of times they come in and in just 2 or 3 years they build their subdivisions out.
Okay, so I would imagine then that as Fountain Inn grows and we expand from 1,000 up to 2,000, some of that would come from lots to go that we know about in the Fountain Inn attendance zone right now.
Yes.
And some would come from the lots to go that are currently in the Hillcrest attendance zone. Does that seem
Well,
logical?
I don't know that that will occur because we project that there will be a good bit of additional growth over the next 10 to 15 years in Fountain Inn's attendance
Okay.
area. There are some initiatives, particularly on our district side in the Lawrence County portion, being addressed to generate more jobs in that area and thereby more residential in addition to what we already know about. So we looked at it very carefully in developing this and Fountain Inn's attendance area, taking all those things into consideration.
Am I right to understand that when you said current 7th graders would be the first to be affected, but their siblings would attend if during the period of their being at the high school? So would that mean that no one currently under 3rd grade would be affected by this change if you had 4 years of high school starting from 2 years from now? So the first ones to be affected then would be those 7th graders moving up to 9th grade. So right now, 4 years earlier would be 3rd grade would still, any 3rd grader would still be online. Is that
If I understand the question correctly, on the sibling priority, if in 2021-22, say a family has an 11th grader and has an incoming 9th grader, that 9th grader will be allowed to go to, say it's Hillcrest and they want to remain at Hillcrest. And then if before that sibling graduates, another sibling begins in 9th grade, we would allow that sibling to go with the now 2nd sibling. Does that make sense? And that is If you look at our regular change in assignment choice or magnet, there is a component that weights siblings higher than other students, and we're really mirroring that.
Okay. I mean, I understand your answer, but am I right that it wouldn't affect anybody who's currently under third grade?
Shh. Only this is a discussion between board members, sorry.
I'm sorry, Dr. O'Connor, would you say that?
Okay, if right now the only seventh graders or above, only seventh grader, let's say, would be affected by this change because the school doesn't open for 2 more years.
Right.
So if their siblings who might be able to follow while they're in high school are also allowed admission, wouldn't that roll back 4 years from the current seventh graders to be current third graders?
Okay, the current seventh graders, if they have an older sibling at the school, no.
If current seventh graders attend Hillcrest or Malden when they get to be ninth graders in 2 years, their siblings, if they come along during that 4-year period, can also go to that high school.
Yes.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
So it sounds to me that we have made a very long-term window for families being affected to the best that you could do, meaning right now nobody under third grade would be affected by this change in terms of those who would not be allowed to go if they had a sibling at the high school. I'm sorry, I'm not
Yes.
saying it clearly,
Yes, yes.
Yes.
but, okay. So I just want to say that that fact, as well as the administration's recommended change for priority attendance, sounds to me that you did make some significant changes based on the community input, and I appreciate that. That's it. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Yes,
Ball
thank you.
O'Connor. Anyone else? Any other speakers? Lisa? Ms. Wales?
Dr. O'Connor we were on the same wavelength, surprisingly. So thank you for asking those questions. That helps me on lots to go, because that's the growth that we're seeing is primarily, in terms of lots to go, is primarily
Ms. Wales, will you move your mic up a little bit or something? You're not coming through real clear.
with destruction.
Or to me, you're not.
I'm getting some feedback, though, too. So the growth is happening in terms of single-family residential lots. When you say lots to go, that's what you're talking about, right?
Yes, let me explain that just, if I may. Every summer, the planning staff goes out all over this district and looks at any subdivision that was not completely built out last summer. And they count the number of homes occupied, the number of homes under construction, and the number still to be something done with. And we determine the number of lots to go for every subdivision. And we use that in a variety of ways for our projections and everything. So that is how we come up with that. It's single-family lots to go.
Okay, so talk to me a little about multifamily developments.
Okay, multifamily developments are a little different.
Right.
If they are market rate apartments, we honestly do not serve many students from them. Now, for instance, several of these that have been built in downtown Greenville, we are serving no students from. Now, those out, say, out of Simpsonville or Malden or Fountain Inn, we do serve some, but it is nowhere like the number we would say an apartment complex is 200 units, and single family is 200 homes. we're not going to be serving as many out of the apartments as we are out of the homes. It also depends on the apartments, how many single bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom apartments they put into those. Now, the difference, if it is multifamily that is affordable housing or subsidized, we serve a much larger number of students from those complexes.
Okay, so it doesn't surprise me that in Greenville, you would not get a lot of students. This is killing me. Is that me, that feedback?
But it'll even surprise you. I can tell you that a lot of those out off of Pelham Road, we serve no students. And then some of those along Butler Road, we're not serving any students. But I wouldn't say they're all that way.
Okay, so like Fountain Inn off of 385, there's a big complex going
Yes.
up. I would imagine that would be a place we would potentially get more students. So
We would get some out of there, yes.
Yeah, so when we're thinking about growth, I guess you see 2,000 lots and you think, oh my gosh, that's a whole bunch. We need to be more concerned about how many students we're putting into Hillcrest versus Malden, because we were only showing 500 single-family lots. But the density of development is the thing that we're not really capturing with the lots to go. So that's, because you do have people building more townhomes and kind of
Multifamily, yes.
Malden's got that area that they're going to build that's going to be along that way. So
Now, internally, we do have student yields based on different types of multifamily. We're not seeing a lot out of townhomes either. They seem to be being targeted to either empty nesters or millennials. And of course, we're still waiting to see more of them get married and have children.
okay, so when we look at, to Dr. O'Connor's point, when we're looking at Hillcrest, the adjustments we're making, we are accommodating that growth
Yes.
that we've identified right now.
Yes, and some beyond that. We wanted to take them down to about 1,600 to have plenty of room for growth.
Okay, all right, so help me out a little bit, because we're using a new term, and I want to make sure I understand this and don't get confused by it. So we have talked about every year when we talk about long-range facilities plan, we talk about program capacity and what that means. And you've explained to me that there are a number of factors that go into that, and it's some, mathematical analysis, and then there's some art
Subjectivity,
to it,
yeah.
if you will, which is hard for me to get my head around, But in our motion today, we're saying, using the word rated capacity. So I want to understand, we've talked about program capacity all these years. Now we're talking about rated capacity, and we're talking about a full-time student equivalent. That's another, little thing that we've added there. So talk to me about, is rated the same as what we've called program before?
Yes. Yes, basically, yes. Let me, whenever we share with you our update to the long-range facility plan, we have talked the last few years about the fact some of the high schools show being over that program or rated capacity. And really, but we've also talked about the fact that we have a lot of students in our high schools that are not there all day. Specifically, those that are attending the Fine Arts Center or career centers, and schools have early dismissal, some have late arrivals. So that full-time equivalency is if every student is really talking about if every student was there every day, all day long. And that is the number if you were doing that. But the reason whenever we have looked at or talked about the fact that some of our schools show over that rated program capacity is because all of those students are not there every period of every day.
Okay, so is that where the 2450 number?
You
Is
know,
that how you're?
we're trying to transition. This was probably both the best time to do this and the worst time to do it. But because there's always been this ambiguity around high school, because it's different. Elementary's pretty simple. Fit this many in the building, and when they're broken out in this many grades, you can get that many in there. Middle school's a little more complicated, but not a great deal more. High school has all these factors. We now have students that go to internships, apprenticeships, have students that go to work having nothing to do with internships or apprenticeships. We have students that go off campus to take classes, dual credit classes. We have students that go to the Fine Arts Center. We have students that go to the Career Center. For example, I think Malden in somewhat round numbers has 250, 260 students.
Oh, yes, just at the Fine Arts and Career Center.
About half a day. So we're going to shift at the high school level to using the term full-time student equivalent. So that might mean 2,400 students might fit in a school that's capacity shows at 21 or 2,200 because we factored in that they're not there all day. And I think that will be easier to understand using the term full-time student equivalent. Now, each year they have to calculate, and they pull that information from Power School, how many go to the Fine Arts Center, how many go to the Career Center, and now if they're actually doing internship or apprenticeship or they have early dismissal. So we can calculate the amount of time they're impacting the facilities of that building. Part of this is a mathematical formula, but part of it's not. Some of the things that you really can't calculate mathematically have to do with circulation within the building. I.e., when you ring the bell and all these people are moving at one time, what's the circulation pattern in there? Two buildings with the exact same amount of square footage, one may have a greater ability to circulate than another one does. Traffic in, traffic out. At the high school level, the number of parking spaces available, which I don't believe we've got, but probably 2 or 3 high schools in the district where there's enough parking space for every student that wishes to drive to be able to drive. But egress from the campus, ingress into the campus, stacking lines, the size of support facilities, how many meals reasonably can the kitchen prepare in a normal lunchtime? What's the ability to house, for example, one class at a time in a setting where you can talk with all of them at one time, whether that be the gym or the auditorium? There are a lot of things like that. Number of science labs, that's a finite number. While you might have some other classrooms, you may run out of the ability to provide science lab services. So all of those are more of an individual. Some are calculations you can do, and others are really not mathematically formalized calculations you can do.
So the 2450 represents what we think would be the number of students that will be served. Now, I'm hoping those guidance counselors don't treat our students to half-time services, even though they're only half-time.
Well, no, the guidance counselors would be assigned based on the number of students in the school.
Yeah.
So if there were 300 above that number, they'd have actually another guidance counselor, even though they're not there all day.
Yeah, which I'm grateful for. Thank you. So in looking at growth at our high schools, you mentioned that we consider, who's going to the Fine Arts Center and the Career Center, dual credit. So can we, specific to Malden and Hillcrest, can we send more students to the Career Center right now? I mean, do we have that as a way to handle growth, or are we maxed out with the number of students that they can send to the Career Center right now?
We are approaching maxing those out as their schedules are currently configured. Now, Mr. Williams, who's sitting back there somewhere, Mr. Williams and his folks are looking at how can we better utilize the space. In other words, instead of just, in some cases, it's being utilized 5 hours a day as opposed to being able to be utilized 7.5 hours a day. The other thing we have on the long-range facility plan is a 5th innovative type career center, which would add some space. And in a month, 2 months, we're going to bring to you some additional facility improvements at existing career centers that will add some classes. Now, I don't have in front of me right now what that might mean at Golden Strip, and I don't know that there are any additions at Golden Strip, but we're looking at ways to better utilize the time at the facilities we currently have.
Okay, but we can't, that's not really that's not a place where we think that's going to absorb a lot of the growth that we would see in these high schools.
I don't think it's going to absorb a lot of it, no, simply by the nature of career courses, some of the things that they do, the sizes of the classes have to be relatively small, primarily for safety concerns.
Right, right. And then on the dual credit, I know some high schools first were, as we started our G+, they were sending kids to campuses and kind of trying to work that out, but because of access issues, I've heard that there's some work to try to get more of our teachers trained, like back in the old days when we had Greenville, we had our teachers trained to offer technical college classes, and they're trying to do that in the schools. So
yes, I mean, both things are going on at the same time. We have students going off campus. We are trying to get more offered on campus exactly for the reason that you mentioned. Just like we saw a 500% increase in the enrollment for career classes that we moved from centers back to high schools, we suspect that we will get, and it appears to be bearing out factually now, we'll get more students in dual credit if we can have the course on campus. Anything that you make more convenient for access, I think generally has a positive impact on the enrollment there.
right. So similarly, increasing dual credit isn't necessarily going to open up more space in our classrooms in the school.
No, it could to a degree, but it's not going to be some great relief. Some of this, one, obviously, is very difficult to project. It's not as difficult to project what's going to happen. What's difficult to project is when it's going to happen. And we believe what we presented to you proportionally, based on the space remaining to be developed in those communities, that proportionally for these 3 school attendance areas provides the most room to accommodate the growth in the 3 areas, Fountain Inn, Hillcrest, and Malden. Also realizing at some point, I don't know how long it will be after Fountain Inn is populated, but if growth continues, some future body will have to decide to add that 1,000 student capacity to it. And it may be sooner than any of us thought about when we first programmed the facility. At some point, probably some other decisions may have to be made. I mean, there could be a point in time where if you look across the southern part of the county, Woodmont, Hillcrest, Malden, and Fountain Inn could all be at their capacity. And then at that point, if school is still reasonably similarly structured to the way it is today, might have to build another school or decide that we're going to add to those. But it may be that schooling's radically different. So there are all kind of forces in play that it's difficult to foresee.
Well, and that's when I wanted to understand a little bit more what the impact would be there, just so you could understand, is it opening up space? And to your point, I know every year Hillcrest always has a lower, even though they're both kind of built for 2,000, Hillcrest always has a lower program capacity, I guess, for some of the reasons you mentioned with regard to just the way the facility lays out and some of the spaces. So currently, right now, we have teachers floating at Malden. I don't know about Hillcrest.
Yes.
So how many floating teachers do we have right now?
As Farley can tell you.
Malden has about 3.5, and Hillcrest has 7.
Okay. So in both those cases, we've got teachers that are in their rooms that have to be displaced during their planning periods, can't meet with students during that time in their room, and can't do those things they need to do. And we have other teachers rolling in with their carts to teach groups of students because we don't have the classroom space.
And I think planning and demographics use a factor of about 10% of the